Billionaire CEO exposed to hidden truth as wife and identical triplets stranded at airport for 6 hours. Marcus Steele stared out at the swirling snow outside LaGuardia, his impeccable suit now feeling like a prison. The blizzard raged, a stark contrast to the luxurious jet that was supposed to whisk his family away to a private holiday in Aspen. Beside him, Sarah, his devoted wife, adjusted the fluffy coat of their identical triplet daughters. They giggled and played games, oblivious to the cold reality that loomed heavy in the air. But Marcus felt the familiar weight in his chest tighten, as if the storm outside were mirroring the turmoil inside. "Marcus, have you ever thought about what our lives look like from the outside?" Sarah's voice cut through the cool air, her expression earnest. "I mean, with everything happening in the world, it seems like the distance between us and those struggling is just growing." Her brow knitted with concern as she observed the chaos around them. His instinct was to suppress the discomfort, the unwanted prick of his conscience. "We worked hard for what we have, Sarah," he replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his tone. "This is the American dream." But beneath his bravado, a flicker of doubt coursed through him like a cold shiver. As the triplets tugged at his jacket to show him a family sitting a few tables away, a single mother sharing snacks with her 2 kids, Marcus felt his skin crawl. They looked happy. Safe. Like a model of joy he once belonged to. He found himself studying the father comforting his anxious son and the grandmother reading stories to her grandchildren. His daughters, bundled in their expensive winter coats, began to notice these families, yet they remained completely unaware of the privilege that surrounded them. The laughter that bubbled from their lips felt painfully out of place. "Do you remember when we struggled?" Sarah continued, her voice softening. "What if there was a way we could help families like the one over there?" Her eyes glistened with emotion. "Maybe there's something more we could do, and something we haven't shared about our own past." Her words ignited a storm within him, knowing that they had once needed a hand, while his success had been built on a simple philosophy: hard work pays off. Suddenly, Sarah's mention of a trust fund he was unaware of felt like a twist of the knife. This trust, meant to assist families like theirs, opened a cavern of guilt he never anticipated. Was he living a lie? Faced with the mounting revelations and greedy whispers from his board of directors about cutting corners to boost profits, a tightening knot formed in his stomach. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Now conflicted, he left his family at the table, stepping into the frigid air outside once more. The snow stung his cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the realization that faced him. His success had unwittingly torn at the very fabric of community. Could he afford to keep building an empire that, unbeknownst to him, contributed to the suffering of so many? The weight of his decisions clawed at him as he stood motionless. The stakes were high. When he re-entered the terminal, his resolve hardened. He wanted nothing but to become the man his daughters thought he was. Yet the chaos around him echoed a haunting truth about his empire. As phone calls from his advisors jangled in his pocket, insisting everything was on the line, he felt the indecision paralyzing him. Would ambition silence integrity? In a world that rewarded privilege, how could he choose between safeguarding his family's legacy and redefining what it truly meant to be wealthy in spirit? The clock was ticking, and uncertainty festered like an open wound. Marcus paced the terminal, his sharply polished shoes echoing against the marble floors, each step a counterpoint to the chaos around him. The storm outside roared louder, reminding him that he was trapped not just in an airport, but in a life defined by demands for success that seemed to overshadow genuine happiness. Each ringing phone in his pocket pulled him deeper into the storm of his thoughts. He stopped short near a vending machine, the fluorescent light making the candy bars inside glisten. It struck him suddenly, this simple machine, so far removed from the intricacies of his world, was a metaphorical reflection of his choices. On one side, there were sweet rewards for a numbed existence, on the other, reality clawing to be acknowledged. What had been a day of promised luxury had ironically transformed into one of existential reflection, forcing him to confront everything he had built. Guilt simmered in his chest as memories surged: his father's worn hands, his mother's weary smile, the suffocating strain of worry about the next meal. They had fought through that darkness, a fight that now felt intensely at odds with the glimmering life he led. For a moment, he closed his eyes, struggling to capture what it was that had first driven him. Did that fire fuel his ambition, or was he merely a puppet tangled in the strings of expectation? Marcus. Come back. His thoughts shattered as Sarah's voice cut through the fog. She approached hurriedly, her face etched with concern. The girls are asking about the magic show. Can we keep things normal for them? Her plea tugged at him. The facade of normalcy seemed more like a crutch now, propping up an illusion he might not want to carry anymore. Seeing her warmth and the innocence of their daughters gave him pause. He had always wanted to be the rock for them, but now it felt as if he were crumbling beneath the weight of expectations not just from his family, but from himself too. Maybe we need to rethink the magic, he said, the words slipping from his lips with unexpected clarity. Sarah's brows knitted together, not understanding. What if we, Marcus, not here? Please. Her voice was steadier than he deserved. But the realization of it all, life was not about the magic of wealth, but how they could create real impact, drenched him in intensity. A pulse of determination raced through him. What if he channeled this unease into something productive, not for the sake of his board or stock prices, but for genuine change? What if he could use his success to forge a new path? I need to make a call. He turned towards a private area, shutting out the noise of the airport. With trembling fingers, he pulled out his phone and dialed the number of a charity he once brushed off. As it rang, adrenaline surged through his veins. Yes, this is Marcus Steele. I'm looking to collaborate on something meaningful. I want to talk about the families we can help. He didn't wait for the surprised reply. This was not just about philanthropy, it was about acknowledging the other side of life, creating a bridge instead of a wall. After he ended the call, Marcus made his way back to Sarah and the triplets. The look on their faces of still fresh doubts faded when he held out a promise of a new beginning. She tilted her head inquisitively. He could see her smile beginning to spark. Let us make magic happen that matters, he declared with newfound assurance. With every word, he felt the weight lift, as though he were shedding the person he had been to welcome someone more authentic, the man he aspired to be. But just as freedom flickered on the horizon, his phone buzzed insistently. It was a text from his CFO, and the one-line reading, "We need to discuss the merger, it's critical," sent a shiver of dread through him. The clock was ticking faster now, and the decisions he faced were nothing less than existential. Could he really choose to redefine his empire, or would the lure of conventional success pull him back into the fray? The moment of truth was fast approaching, and Marcus had a decision to make. The tension in Marcus's chest was almost unbearable, an unwelcome visitor snapping him back to the glittering, high-stakes world waiting beyond the airport terminal. He had just stepped toward a new endeavor filled with promise, only to be yanked back by the familiar weight of corporate expectation. The message from his CFO flickered in his mind, challenging his newfound resolve. How could something as impersonal as a merger, tethered to money and metrics, compare to the lives he could touch with this change? Marcus? You okay? Sarah's voice cut through his introspection, concern deepening the lines on her forehead. The chaos of the airport swirled around them, yet in that moment, only the two of them existed. He could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, a small oasis amidst their uncertainty. Yeah, he lied, forcing a smile that felt brittle against the backdrop of genuine soul-searching. Just thinking about the magic and about how we can really connect with others. Right. She crossed her arms and regarded him with a mix of hope and skepticism. You want to turn everything upside down, don't you? A part of him wanted to retreat into comfort. He wanted to assure her that he wouldn't abandon their lives for some ill-defined, abstract passion. But a sudden wave of clarity enveloped him. This isn't just about us, it's about what we can create together. What we can build. He reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. I don't want to just be a guy who makes deals. I want to do something that lasts, a legacy that enables change. Sarah hesitated, almost as if testing the solidity of his resolve. "Well, then, we need to keep the girls in mind too," she replied cautiously. "This isn't just about big ideas, it's about family, about balancing everything." The truth hit him harder than expected. Balancing ambition with family was a juggling act he had precariously managed, yet as he stood in the storm of conflicting motivations, he questioned whether he had ever genuinely committed to either. "Let us pull them in," he said suddenly, a rush of inspiration fueling his words. "What if we got the girls involved? They are so curious and whimsical. Maybe they can help us brainstorm ideas for the charity, or better yet, we can host little outreach events." He could see the spark return to Sarah's eyes, but doubt lingered just beneath the surface. "That's a nice thought, Marcus, but you know how difficult it can become managing everything with their schedules and your commitments." "It will be chaotic, yes," he admitted, voice growing more earnest. "But isn't chaos sometimes where we find our greatest joy?" The words felt heavy, loaded with an expectation that he sought to fulfill not just for his daughters, but for himself. As they stood in that terminal, a crossroads of personal evolution unfolded before him. He had the chance to blend his ambition with a meaningful intent. It was a puzzle piece that fit for the first time. A ding from his phone interrupted their moment. It was another text from his CFO, this time more urgent. "Time's running out. The merger proposals are dwindling." Ignoring it, Marcus breathed in deeply, channeling his focus into clarity. He needed to act. "I think I'll speak with the board before we fly out. I'll lay out visions for our future and scale back our focus to align with these new priorities." Sarah's expression softened, uncertainty giving way to cautious optimism. "I think that's a good idea, but be prepared for pushback. You're disrupting the status quo." He nodded, the adrenaline igniting within him again. "But that's the point, isn't it? What's a life without risk? It's time to embrace it both for our family and for those who need help." A flicker of doubt still flickered in the corners of his mind, but the heat of determination blazed brighter. He was ready. The stakes had never been more elevated or the path more opaque, but it was here, at this crossroads, that he felt truly alive. Just as he reached for Sarah's hand again, the airport intercom crackled to life, announcing a delayed flight. He understood now that time was a finite resource, a reminder that no choice could be delayed indefinitely. The looming question whispered beneath his thoughts: would he continue to chase a mirage of success or seize the moment to make a meaningful impact? With feet planted firmly in uncertainty, he knew that his next step would not only redefine his career but also reshape his very legacy. The choice was his, but the clock was ticking. Would he emerge a revolutionary leader or merely a corporate puppet gripping tightly to fading ambitions? The choice awaited him, and the moment was ripe with possibility. The moment Marcus stepped into the boardroom, the air thickened with expectation. He could feel the scrutinizing gazes of his colleagues weighing down like a blanket of lead. This was at the pivotal moment that could either launch a transformative journey or entrench them deeper into corporate apathy. He looked around at the faces he had shared triumphs with, but doubt crept in. Would they support his vision or dismiss it as mere naivete? "Let us get started," he managed, forcing his voice to remain steady. As he stood at the head of the table, an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability washed over him. He was no longer the confident negotiator sealing lucrative deals. He was a man on the brink of reshaping his reality. Marcus, his CFO, Angela, interjected before he could continue. "I assume you received my updates about the merger?" "Yes," he replied, but the words felt hollow. "However, I'd like to discuss a shift in focus, an opportunity to realign our priorities towards something more impactful." He could already sense the tension in the room, colleagues shifting in their seats, eyes narrowing in skepticism. But he pressed on, driven by an urgency that seemed to radiate from his core. "I believe we can redefine success by embedding social responsibility into our strategy. We can initiate outreach that brings our communities into our fold, investing in local initiatives." A murmuring filled the room, and Angela's expression hardened. "Marcus, you're suggesting we divert funds from our primary objectives at one of the most critical junctures in our company's history. We can't afford distractions." The challenge ignited a fire within him. But isn't that the point? If our company does not stand for something greater, then what is the use of profit without purpose? We have a chance to leave a legacy that matters. He could detect a glimmer of uncertainty among his peers, and he seized that moment. What if we involved employees at every level? Engage them in community projects, host workshops, use our position to empower those we serve. The room fell silent, and he let the weight of his proposals sink in. Yet he could see Angela's resistance harden. This was a direct confrontation with the corporate status quo that had defined their organization for far too long. He was not just challenging a business strategy, he was confronting identities deeply entrenched in success measured solely by numbers. "Marcus, we need to think pragmatically," said Dean, another board member. "We can't turn the ship that quickly. There are shareholders, annual reports, quarterly targets, everything is tied to our current strategy." "Maybe that's the problem," he shot back, a surge of conviction strengthening his voice. "So many companies are terrified to deviate from the norm that they forget their power to affect real change. Think about what we could catalyze." He thought of Sarah's concerns, their daughter's innocent enthusiasm, and how their futures were intertwined with this very moment. The struggle within him was palpable. Who would he become if he failed to act on this vision? This was not merely a pitch, it was a plea for authenticity. "Let us put it to a vote," Marcus proposed, heart racing at the audacity of his request. The notion of transparency, of allowing each board member to weigh in, echoed like a final defiance against complacency. Let every voice count. A silence fell as he scanned the room. The board members exchanged hesitant glances. In that moment of uncertainty lay hope, not just for him, but for the very fabric of the culture they had built. Marcus felt his chest tighten with anticipation, each heartbeat amplifying the tension. A choice loomed ahead: would they embrace a new path, or would they revert back to their secure, profit-driven policies? As the board began the discussion, he focused not just on winning the vote, but on a deeper realization. This was his moment to reaffirm who he hoped to be, a leader willing to confront danger for the sake of a cause greater than himself. The atmosphere crackled with energy as he took a deep breath, the stakes now more profound than ever. He couldn't help but wonder if he was capable of the transformative risk he was asking them to take. Would the board align with his vision, or would fear prevail, anchoring them into familiar waters? The answers awaited him, clinging to the air like the scent of potential. The moment of truth was upon him, and he was ready to face the consequences of his endeavor, whatever they might be. The tension in the boardroom was palpable, each second stretching into eternity as Marcus awaited the outcome of the discussion he had ignited. Voices drifted around him, laced with skepticism and fear, but he held on to the flicker of hope that his plea had kindled. This was not just about a strategy, it was about redefining their identity, their legacy. He could feel the pulse of potential transformation. As board members debated, Marcus's mind raced with consequences both personal and professional. If his idea propelled forward, what would it mean for their current fiscal strategies? More unsettling was the thought of how he would be perceived if this shift failed. Would he still be seen as a leader, or merely the man who dared to dream big? "Marcus," Angela began again, her voice dripping with condescension. "Change is hard, especially in times of uncertainty. We have a responsibility to our shareholders." "Exactly," Marcus countered, finding his voice steady. "But what happens when we prioritize profit over people? The shareholders are not merely invested in numbers, they too will benefit from a company that cares about its community. Happy employees translate to productivity. Engaged communities generate loyalty. Isn't that what we want?" He sensed a shift. Some board members were nodding, their previous indecision now mingled with contemplation. But the looming specter of Angela's disapproval loomed large. She was not simply protecting shareholders, she embodied the institution's very resistance to change. Why was he so determined to face her opposition? Perhaps it was her unwavering adherence to an outdated creed, the very same rigid foundation that had stifled innovation. He realized that this was not just about proving his worth in a boardroom, it was about dismantling a paradigm. He had spent years absorbing the stringent rules of corporate existence, and now he had an opportunity to reshape those guidances. The core of his professional journey had been about adapting, learning, and evolving. This was no different. The moment Marcus was about to elaborate further, Dean spoke up again, his voice slicing through the fervor. "You're asking us to gamble on an untested strategy, Marcus. The merger could collapse our stock. The timing is terrible." Or, Marcus interrupted, heart racing, "we could be ahead of the curve. What if we became a model for corporate responsibility? What if we built a brand synonymous with integrity and social consciousness?" The room shifted as he perceived a dichotomy forming. Those who leaned toward fear were colliding against the tide of those who dared to consider a new path. He took a breath, feeling the weight of potential endorsement. "I refuse to believe that we can't innovate in our approach without risking our identity. Isn't leadership about taking risks? Imagine the stories we could share when we redirect our model towards purpose." As he finished speaking, he caught sight of Angela's cold skepticism. The mask she wore was one of unwavering authority, but in her eyes, he noticed a flickered doubt or annoyance. It was a possibility he had not anticipated. Before the board could dismiss him entirely, he sensed the urgency to drive home what was at stake: their integrity, their legacy. "This is about much more than profits, it's about who we are. If we fail to adapt, we risk becoming irrelevant." Almost instinctively, Marcus leaned forward, some buried part of him yearning for connection through his passion. "But this is also about our responsibility to each other. If not now, when? If not us, then who? We can succeed, but only if we are willing to shift our perceptions." A muted silence embraced the room, as if they were grappling with both external and internal conflicts. The air thickened with realization: the real challenge lay beyond numbers and strategies. It was rooted deep in their identities. What they set in motion, Marcus pondered, could either pave a monumental path or mire them in complacency. He felt a surge of determination flood through him and, for the first time, considered what this journey truly meant beyond the company. It echoed within him with every heartbeat. The board members began to cast wary glances at one another as the conversation shifted to weighing the risks versus the promises. Suddenly, the stakes grew tremendously larger, not just for the company, but for Marcus's own evolution. It became evident that this moment of truth was not purely professional, it would define him personally. "Let us decide," he urged, the pulse of conviction beating louder in his chest. "It's not just about whether we vote in favor of this idea, but about what kind of leaders we choose to be." The room sat on the precipice of a decision that could redefine them all. Would they lean into discomfort, forging a new legacy, or cling to the familiar shackles of safety? And from within the silence, a thought struck Marcus: what if the influence of this meeting would bring repercussions he hadn't foreseen? It wasn't just the corporate world on the line, it was his marriage, his dreams, his very essence that could flourish or suffer. As the board members began to whisper amongst themselves, a sudden realization gripped Marcus, a deep, unsettling awareness. The greater risk might not be in their decision today, but in the reality that awakening this vision might expose his own vulnerabilities like never before. Would he find the resilience to stand firm, or was he inviting chaos into his life? The answer hung in the air, an uncharted course laid before him. Marcus leaned back in his chair, tracing the pattern of the polished conference table with an absent finger. The chatter among the board members faded to a hum, echoing uncertainty that reflected his own inner turmoil. He had opened the floodgates, pouring his heart into a vision that could reshape the company's identity, but as the waves of discontent washed over the room, he wondered if he had miscalculated. Absorbing the heated exchanges, he felt the weight of his dream pressing heavily on him. What if this was a naive leap instead of a step toward innovation? As Angela's eyes pierced through him with a challenging glare, a flicker of doubt whispered, taunting his resolve. His view of leadership was shifting. Was he prepared to confront the bitter resistance that often accompanied significant change? Amidst the chaos, clarity emerged. His commitment to the proposed transformation was not merely professional, it was grounded in a struggle against complacency, not just for the company's future, but for his own evolving identity. Faced with that realization, he leaned forward again, gathering the courage to address the threshold of expectation hovering over him. "Change brings discomfort," he said, his voice finding a steadiness he didn't know he possessed. "But without embracing that discomfort, we risk stagnation. As leaders, our role is to navigate through the uncertainty, not around it. A few heads nodded, signaling a shift. Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline, igniting something deeper within him. Perhaps speaking from his core as opposed to rhetoric and statistics was the key to connecting with the board. He needed to share why this mattered. Each of us has a story that led us here, he continued, this time softer but more deliberate. As leaders, we owe it to our families, our teams, and ourselves to lead with authenticity and compassion. It's time we stop viewing our shareholders in isolation. Our families are also stakeholders in this company. They deserve to see us leverage our influence for good. His thoughts darted homeward, where his wife often grappled with balancing dreams and responsibilities. Would he be the husband she thought she married, one who fought for values beyond mere profit? Or would he conflate money with meaning, sacrificing the very ideals he preached? The boardroom, transformatively tense, buzzed with a fresh current of contemplation. It was evident that some members were now questioning their own positions. Their gazes seemed softer, curiosity replaced disdain. Could this be it? The moment that sparked a real dialogue rather than a mere boardroom battle? Yet, deep within, a dread nestled itself closer. What lay ahead, an uphill battle, messy emotions, or ruptured relationships, was unknown territory. He fought to wrestle control, balancing his aspirations with the reality that awakening a vision often carried a cost. Before he could further dissect these thoughts, Angela spoke again, her voice having softened but still edged with skepticism. I can respect your passion, Marcus, but we need to buy into a concrete plan that shows benefit. The subtle challenge reignited his determination. And I promise you that we'll craft a solid plan, but it must be anchored in values that resonate with our identity. We need to redefine our legacy, not just with numbers but with actions and heart. The very heartbeat of our organization should reflect our commitment to those values. As the board began to jot down notes and ponder strategically, Marcus felt the tug of possibility. He could chart a course that inspired those around him, but at what cost to himself? Cornered by choices, he wrestled with the knowledge that not every transformation yields comfort. In fact, it might compound his vulnerabilities, but that realization could be the catalyst for growth not just within the company but within himself. Angela seemed ready to challenge him further, her eyes narrowing as she prepared her argument. The stakes had never been higher, and the boardroom's atmosphere thickened with the anticipation of what would come next. In that charged silence, Marcus pondered not only the potential repercussions of this meeting but also the sheer depth of introspection it forced upon him. Could he harness that vulnerability to forge a stronger identity, a more resilient leader? His gaze flickered over the faces in front of him, now keenly aware of the weight of their shared evolution. Would they ultimately rise with him, or be anchored by fear? He braced himself for whatever would rise next from this decision. And then, the door creaked open as a latecomer stepped in, carrying a momentum that shifted the air, creating an unexpected pivot in the proceedings. The thread of tension unraveled further, revealing the unpredictable outcome lying ahead. Would this new entry bolster Marcus's vision or cast further shadows of doubt over his burgeoning initiative? The door swung wide, and a figure rushed in, a casual, confident presence amidst the formal rigidity of the boardroom. It was Ryan, the head of marketing, whose reputation for thinking outside the box had earned him both admiration and resentment. A ripple of surprise coursed through the members, heads turning as he bounded to the front, a vibrant contrast to the muted tones around the polished conference table. Sorry I'm late, I had a last-minute meeting with a potential partner in town, he said, breathless yet exhilarated, as if he had just stepped off a stage. But I couldn't stay silent after hearing Marcus's pitch. We need to seriously consider the path he is proposing. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude towards Ryan, a flicker of hope gleaming in his chest. But that hope collided with a knot of anxiety. Would Ryan's support bolster his cause, or would it expose the fragility of what he was trying to establish? Ryan wasted no time. You all know the trends. The old way of thinking is collapsing. Customers want more than just products, they crave purpose. I've seen it firsthand and so have you. He gestured to Marcus, the alignment between them palpable. We've done research that shows engagement and values-driven leadership create passionate teams. Marcus is right, we need to redefine our legacy. The board members exchanged puzzled glances, some appearing intrigued, others unconvinced. Marcus felt the network of doubt withstand the glimmers of hope Ryan brought to the conversation. He didn't need to just rely on Ryan, he had to contribute his voice, too. He felt the urgency to solidify their shared vision in response to Angela's lingering skepticism. Ryan's correct, Marcus interjected, his voice steadier this time, marked with a newfound conviction. But it's not only about engaging customers, it's about igniting the passion within ourselves and our teams. Every transformation begins with why. What do we want our legacy to symbolize, not just in profits, but in connection, compassion, and integrity? Angela's gaze sharpened, her skepticism mingled with curiosity. She leaned forward, folded her arms, and asked pointedly, "And what does that legacy cost us financially, Marcus? Our shareholders are expecting returns, above all else." Her question hovered in the air, both a challenge and a test. Doubts rippled through Marcus's mind, but they also catalyzed a critical reflection. What was leadership if it solely catered to the bottom line? Was he prepared to risk everything he believed in for something greater? The tug of fear was unmistakable, yet beneath it all, a deeper conviction pulsated. Change always comes with risks, he stated, drawing from personal engagement rather than corporate jargon. But it's those very risks that propel us forward. If we do not take this leap, we trade our future for momentary profits and lackluster mediocrity. A pause ensued as board members absorbed his words. The tension swelled, and for the first time, he could see curiosity ignite within the cautious eyes of some. This was the dialogue he had hoped for, a crossing of paths where truth and vulnerability intermingled. But with change came collapse. Not every journey would be warm and welcoming. The cost of rocking the boat involved potential backlash not only from shareholders but also within corporate culture itself. What if his vision faltered and he could not rally his team successfully? Just as hope flickered, Marcus was gripped by uncertainty. Would he be able to face the judgment of those who now seemed prepared to push back? "Marcus, what happens if this backfires?" Angela pressed, her gaze penetrating like a blade. Her words lodged themselves deep within him, reverberating doubts he had hoped to conquer. Despite the urgency pulsating in his veins, he paused, weighing the gravity of her question. Perhaps this was more than just a board meeting, it was a crucible testing his resolve. "I can't predict the future," he finally confessed, drawing upon an authenticity that felt both risky and relieving. "But I can promise that, together, we can navigate its challenges. We have to be willing to face the fallout as leaders if that means paving the way for something truly transformative. I can't do this alone." Angela's eyes softened, her tough exterior cracked slightly as they exchanged glances. Now it was clear a convergence of trust hung in the air, tempered on the edge of acceptance. Yet, amidst the glimmer of possibility, Marcus felt the heavy chains of doubt rattle even louder. As the discussion lingered between possibility and disbelief, a fear rooted inside him clawed for attention. What sacrifices would he endure to advocate loyalty to his vision? As each board member processed this tension, Ryan stepped forward once more, a fiery rallying cry echoing from his lips. "Then let us build a plan." His enthusiasm was infectious. "Let us transform this narrative into an actionable strategy that draws from our authenticity. Together, we can be the leaders who don't just survive the industry, we can redefine it." In that moment, Marcus recognized the crossroads ahead, a pathway formed by vulnerability and courage, leading to unforeseen challenges. With renewed focus, he contemplated the decisions he needed to make. Was he truly prepared to challenge the status quo, risk his beliefs, and fight on his own terms? The boardroom filled with contemplative silence once more, pregnant with everything yet to unravel. A decision loomed, a pull towards an unknown journey. Just as the tension reached its peak, his phone buzzed discreetly in his pocket. A sudden message flashed before his eyes, igniting a new concern. He glanced at it, the brief view altering the trajectory of his nerve. Marcus inhaled deeply, realizing the nature of his commitment was evolving. What awaited him outside those conference walls was spiraling fast toward a revelation that could forever change not just the company, but his very essence. Could he stand resilient, and more importantly, would he be prepared for what lay ahead? His heart began to race as Marcus read the message on his phone, a terse reminder that the company was about to face not only internal upheaval but a public relations crisis that could not be ignored. It was a simple notification, a news alert reporting a flight delay involving his wife and their 3 children. Stranded at the airport, they were left bickering over travel arrangements. Worse yet, the online commentary had started to take a nosedive, with speculation swirling about their perceived neglect. The irony of the moment was not lost on him. Could he promise a purposeful legacy at work when his heart was already splintering under the weight of familial responsibilities? He felt the pressure building, not just from the board meeting, but from the conflicting demands of his dual identity as a leader and as a father. Was it even possible to navigate both realms without sacrificing one for the other? Everything all right, Marcus? Ryan's voice broke through his thoughts, awakening him to the present. The boardroom, once buzzing with shared ambitions, now felt constricting, a box where his ambitions collided with personal doubts. Yeah, Marcus responded, but the word felt brittle, devoid of conviction. It was as if his own voice was betraying the shivering mass of uncertainty within him. How could he stand there and advocate for transformation in the workplace while simultaneously neglecting the emotional upheaval waiting for him at home? Ryan seemed to notice. Look, I know this is a big moment for all of us, and it's okay to feel a bit overwhelmed, he said, his voice tempered with understanding. But we need to focus. Let us harness this momentum. What's the next step we take? This was Marcus's moment. It was time to not only advocate for a vision but to embody it. Could he articulate a path forward that was authentic to both himself and the company? He took a deep breath, willing the anxiety to settle. Let us clarify our goals. We need to secure our stakeholders' buy-in and develop proof of concept based on our values. We can combine our brand narrative with actionable steps. As he spoke, the boards of uncertainty began to shift, revealing pathways forged by commitment rather than fear. The tension in the room began to dissipate as his focus sharpened. However, his internal reflection remained tumultuous. How to balance this evolving corporate promise with the personal chaos waiting outside? For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of admiration in Angela's eyes. Perhaps she sensed his struggle and resilience. After all, leadership was not only about setting a vision but also about overcoming adversity. Just then, a surprising thought crossed his mind. Could his family become part of this transformation? What if they were the very reason he pushed forward? Fleeting images of sharing his endeavors with his children ignited a spark, and adrenaline surged through him. Let us not just create a vision for success. Let us involve our families in what this means, he said, even surprising himself with his newfound clarity. If we can't bring our personal values into our work life, how can we expect our employees to resonate with this journey? As the board members leaned in, drawn by his passion, Marcus locked eyes with Ryan. The sense of collaboration felt deeper now, beyond the professional. They were embarking on a shared vision, and as Marcus pressed on, he uncovered a resolve that had long been buried. This was about more than just business, it was personal. Yet, as he leaned into this growing conviction, the gnawing worry about his family remained. Could he truly bridge the gap between personal and professional, or would one ultimately suffer? Just then, another buzz from his phone snapped him back. A follow-up message, this time with urgent requests for his personal input regarding their situation at the airport. His commitment to the meeting was potent, but so was the pull of his family. As he faced his colleagues, a decision loomed. Would he continue to elevate the prevailing narrative or prioritize the immediate need for familial support? The interplay of doubt and determination settled heavily, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. In that pivotal moment, the realization hit hard. Commitment to purpose came with sacrifices, and now was the time to define what those would be. As the conversation between his colleagues raged on, Marcus caught his breath, recognizing that he stood at a crossroads, one marked by competing truths in both his professional landscape and personal life. What was waiting for him outside the boardroom could somehow tilt the balance he hoped to achieve. With the unrelenting pull of chaos awaiting him at his doorstep, could he emerge as the leader he aspired to be while embracing the journey that lay ahead at home? His next choice would be crucial, a definitive step into the unknown, both for him and for those he held dear. The moment felt electric, a precursor to the inevitable storm. Would he find strength to confront it, or would he run? Marcus's mind whirred with the implications of his decision. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to action, to commitment. The room around him, once a sanctuary of ambition, had, in an instant, transformed into a pressure cooker filled with the heated voices of his colleagues. Their discussions about the future of the company melded with visions of his family, stranded and anxious. He felt torn, each side pulling at him more aggressively than the last. The crisis at home was a reality he had hitherto ignored, and now it reared its head like a sickening wave. Could he risk his family's well-being for corporate stability? Would leading this charge toward transformation at work justify the absence he feared would echo in the hearts of his children? Marcus? Ryan's voice cut through again, jolting him from his thoughts. The concern etched on his friend's face cascaded into Marcus's consciousness, awakening a tender sense of responsibility. We really need you to steer this forward. Right, he said, gathering his breath to regain composure. A moment of silence settled, giving him clarity to think strategically. As a leader, he had always been defined by his quick decisions and unwavering focus. Yet, now, the enormity of this dissonance between the boardroom and his family threatened to dismantle his identity. Let us do this, he declared, an unexpected conviction igniting within him. I need to be transparent about the challenges we're facing. I can't keep pretending our narrative is seamless when it's built on shaky ground. A murmur of surprise swept through the boardroom. Angela's eyes widened as she felt the ripple of his raw honesty, a side that had often remained hidden under layers of professionalism. Marcus recognized that vulnerability could become his most powerful asset, a way to forge genuine connections not only with his family but also with his team. Marcus, are you sure? Ryan inquired tightly, still uncertain. This is a big risk. More than ever, he replied, it's time we integrate our lives into this work. I want to create change that matters, not just within these walls, but that resonates with all of us. Our families are part of this journey. As he elaborated on his vision, an empowering shift took hold. He saw a glimpse of potential from his colleagues, a flickering light of mutual recognition that they all struggled with similar pressures. Transitioning his business vision into a family-oriented model could reshape their perspectives while grounding his own chaotic emotions. Marcus restructured the meeting agenda, urging them to discuss how their personal values could manifest in corporate strategies. He encouraged each member to share what family meant to them, how their home lives influenced their work ethics. Slowly, the conversation morphed from numbers to narratives, and laughter began to break the tension as each story added texture to the fabric of their collective identity. Yet, even in this moment, the creeping thoughts of his family's plight gnawed at him. Would they understand his absence? Would they forgive him for not being present, even as he advocated for a more collective approach to leadership? With each passing minute, the internal storm raged on. The decision loomed like a specter, reminding him that while he spoke of transformation, his heart still felt heavy with the weight of his choices. As he concluded, wrapping up the meeting with renewed fervor, a familiar buzz emanated from his phone once more. Concern clawed at him, messages piling in, this time not just queries but urgent cries from his wife, words etched with desperation that cracked the foundation of his resolve. Taking a deep breath, he felt the pulse of impending decisions quicken within him. Could he truly navigate this duality? As he stared at the screen, face illuminated by its glow, another thought crept in. Perhaps confronting this turmoil was the only way to achieve the success he truly desired. Without warning, he resolved to tackle both the chaos at home and his corporate ambitions. This was not merely about business, but confronting the truth of what his life had become and who he would choose to be because of it. As he stepped out of the boardroom, ready to face both his family and his position in the company, he sensed that a key revelation awaited him. What profound truths about himself might emerge when he confronted the reality of both worlds? Marcus Steele stood at the threshold of the airport, a once imposing figure now softened by a whirlwind of introspection. The chaotic buzz of his corporate life had transformed into a background hum, replaced by the compelling urgency of the moment. Amidst family obligations and boardroom decisions, he felt the tension of dual worlds collide, a stark contrast to the ambition that had previously defined him. The messages on his phone had come in a flurry, each vibrating with an insistence that tugged at his thoughts. His wife, Sarah, had expressed both concern for their triplet daughters stranded in the frigid airport. She didn't need to say it, he could feel the weight of their disappointment in her words. This represented more than an interrupted holiday, it was an emotional turning point that stirred something deep within him. The earlier discussion with his board echoed in his ears. He had pressed for a transformative vision, intertwining his professional aspirations with personal values. Now, it was time to test whether he could enact real change not just inside the walls of the boardroom but in the fabric of his own life. As he stepped outside the terminal into the biting cold, he experienced a moment of clarity, as if the storms swirling around him had finally cleared away the fog. Standing alone against the gusting winds, he was overcome by the realization that life was not just about accumulating wealth, it was about building mechanisms for genuine connection and contribution. His phone buzzed again, breaking the silence. This time, it was a notification from social media, an update from his company's channel celebrating their community outreach efforts. The post illuminated how they would begin collaborating with local charities, fundamentally aligning with his vision of social responsibility. Marcus smiled, feeling a rush of energy, realizing that change was indeed occurring, even while he wrestled with his personal chaos. Yet, the thought of his family's situation loomed larger than ever, challenging his sense of achievement. "I need to talk to Sarah first," he murmured under his breath, determination solidifying within him. It was time to make things right. He was not just a conglomerate CEO, he was also a husband and a father. The two identities did not need to clash, they could coexist and thrive. As he called Sarah, his mind began to drift to how he could couple these two worlds. "Sarah, it's me," he said, his voice steady yet warm, a stark contrast to the storm raging the past hours. "I know things are hectic, but I need you to trust me. I'm making changes that will not only help our company but will strengthen our family as well." "Marcus," she replied, her tone a mixture of relief and skepticism. "What changes? We're supposed to be on vacation. You're not here. Our daughters are waiting, I know, and I'm sorry for that. But my focus is shifting, and I want to bring you and the girls into this." A pause lingered between them, thick with unspoken fears and hopes. "Back home? Or right now?" Sarah asked, and Marcus could hear a newfound curiosity in her voice. "Let us brainstorm ways our family can engage with the community. I want us to work together to find initiatives that resonate with our daughters. This is more than just a corporate shift, it's about creating a legacy for them." He could sense her processing the enormity of his proposal, the bridge he wanted to build between their worlds. Excitement bubbled in her voice. "You're serious? You want us to help?" "Yes. When I return, I want us to establish a family outreach program aimed at helping others. I want our daughters to see that joy comes not from wealth, but from impact." "That sounds incredible," she replied, her tone lifting. "Let us get the girls involved as a team. They'd love it." The conversation faded, but the vision solidified. He could create a legacy rooted not in numbers but in meaningful actions. Walking toward the terminal, he saw families laughing and embracing amidst their own chaos, a reminder that connection was what truly mattered. Returning to the boardroom, he carried this new clarity with palpable confidence. He envisioned sharing his vision, blending caring familial values with a robust business strategy, offering his colleagues a glimpse into a transformed approach. Standing before them, he was ready to accept fully his role as a leader, not just in the world of finance but in the landscape of humanity. "Let us pivot," Marcus began, his voice ringing with conviction. "We have a rare opportunity to redefine our identity as a company that prioritizes connection and compassion. It's time for us to implement community initiatives that engage both our employees and their families. The changes I am proposing are not just about corporate responsibility, they're about legacy, the legacy we create together, a lasting impact that nourishes human connection." This time, there was no resistance. Instead, he found a room full of compassion. Ideas flowed, invigorating discussions ignited, and the once friction-heavy environment began rejuvenating with enthusiasm. It was a seismic shift in direction caused not merely by ambition, but by an authentic desire to meld family with corporate purpose. Finally understanding that one did not overshadow the other, Marcus found satisfaction in this new alignment. His ambitions were not to be shackled by societal expectations but enriched by authentic engagement. The meeting came to an end, spirits lifted, and as he left the boardroom, Marcus felt the lingering echoes of doubt dissolve. He was not merely a leader driven by success metrics, he was a man redefined, ready to utilize both his personal and professional strengths to carve out a new legacy, one inspired by authenticity, family unity, and generous giving. With a smile of fulfillment on his face, he signaled to his family through a FaceTime call, eager to share his vision. It was time to embrace his journey, unfolding uniquely, courageously, beautifully, and wholly. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.